Welcome to Comic Wars. Tonight we're discussing quite the thrilling matchup. This, as the description even shows, is going to be a battle of Hunter versus Hunter. So who's going to be the hunter in this case, and who's going to be the prey? We'll find out tonight between the match of the Creeper from Jeepers Creepers lore against the Gotcha Predator. Remember, the victor of each match is announced during the outcome at the end of the show. So, without further ado, let's get into the overview. As usual, if we had a guest, this is where we would introduce them, and this is where we would kind of just talk with them, a little witty banter probably, and then, of course, get their guesses. Who do they think would win? It's a good time for you guys to also chime in if you guys are interested in, of course, chiming in the chat. But if not, that's totally cool too. Feel free to go and drop who you think is going to win this matchup and why in the comments down below. On top of that, well, what comes next, rather, is the background details. This is where we start breaking things down, who they are, essentially, as a character. How tall they are, how heavy they are, their age, their background. So, like, what's their occupation? Maybe what's something they're commonly doing, right? You know, that could be considered their occupation, for instance. Hey, how's it going, Rick? I totally get you. You're going to be surprised at some of the feats on both of these parties here. It's interesting. There's a lot more of the number calculation going on in this one. Absolutely have to have this number calculation. As you just think about, two superpowered guys that are just superhuman strength, superhuman speed, and all this. I mean, it gets wacky. So we're going to be breaking down their exact numbers on how strong they are out of all their greatest feats. But after we get into the background details, and of course, after we go into their personality and all this kind of stuff, then we're going to get into their feats. And this is where we're going to go over their greatest strength, durability, speed and agility, their martial prowess, ingenuity, weaponry, if they have gadgets, so things that, they're not necessarily a weapon per se. And of course, their powers. This is where we're going to break all of that down, just kind of listing them out. We tend to combine this with data analysis, but technically speaking, we're supposed to go into data analysis after, which is where we break everything down. So if this guy's able to hit this hard, how many newtons is this? And how much force is this? How much pounds per square inch? Things like that. We're going to break it all down. After that, then we get into the character pros and cons, more or less kind of breaking down the characters, what all these things mean. Maybe there's a weakness in there. We're going to talk about that. Of course, after that, then we get into the guest analysis. This is also where we go to the audience after everything has been laid out. What do they think? Did they change their guess? Or are they sticking with their guess? And after that, we're going to break down the outcome. By this point, I've typically got, before even the guest analysis, I've usually got a pretty good clue as to who wins and why. But of course, this is all up for debate during the outcome as well. So I might have it one way, and then if I had a guest or there's somebody in the chat says, well, wait a second, this is what this means is here. Maybe I'll do a quick little research real quick on my phone or something and then get back to you within just a few seconds. But typically that's not going to be generally the case because I've got all the numbers pretty well crunched. I don't exactly know who wins this quite yet, as I haven't done any of the total calculations and we haven't really looked at any scenarios here. So, all right, but after we've already discussed who wins, then we get into the preview for the next match. All right, well, let's get into our first combatant. If this will load up. All right, so our first one is the Creeper from Jeepers Creepers lore. He was written and directed by Victor Salva. Yes, there's much controversy about this director. I'm not paying much attention to the director as much as I am the character here. Ironic, this guy's like a super predator, and well, so is Victor Salva. Jokes aside, though, we don't really know what the Creeper's name is, and we do know that he's well over 2,000 years old. We don't know his exact age either. So, as for his height, well, he's 6 foot 8 inches tall, and he weighs approximately 304 pounds. As for his occupation, well, technically he's a seasonal monster slash demon, depending on the lore you're receiving. Whether it be the comics, whether it be the movies, and even then, certain movies depict him in one way, others just say, no, this is what he is, he was a cannibal, blah, 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 blah. So, this typically, we see him as more of a demon or a monster character. His area of operation is actually Central Florida. Yeah, I totally thought he was going to be like Midwest. You know, like Louisiana, getting towards like that area, not necessarily Florida, but nope, Central Florida. Interesting, even though he's been seen all over the world. So we don't know exactly where his point of origin was. But that's currently where he's operating. As for his personality, well, he's sadistic, he's brutal, highly intelligent, he's creative, he's cocky. Now, what I mean by cocky is he loves being feared by his opponents, and I totally did a misspell there. I'll have to fix that. But he will toy with his opponents to like a great deal at times. So this is kind of a psychological weakness, if you will, because he likes to have his opponent fear him. However, as it's getting closer towards his time of slumber, his hibernation period, he gets a lot less nitpicky and just gets right to it. So once he's picked you as a victim, you're going to be his victim. So for this case, would he necessarily pick the predator as a victim? Who really knows? But we're going to just say, for the sake of this, there's some things we have to go and do. For instance, with Freddy, it had to be a strictly dream world as a starting point. This is just going to be, he wants to go and, he wants to eat the Yacha. Essentially is what it is. And we're going to just say it's his, we'll say it's his brain, just because it can't just be something that's going to be super easy. It's got to be something that the Yacha would actually die from. So, because the thing is, he'll eat things such as a finger. Why does he want that? So he can regrow a finger, or just because that's part of what he wants. He'll consume body parts and they go into his body, and then he can actually regenerate them. But a little tidbit about him: his age is actually alleged to be thousands of years old. But if you were to go into the lore, they allege that he could be as old as the planet itself, possibly older. All right, let's get into his feats. So, his strength capabilities. This is where this is going to start getting nuts. He's capable of ripping his own head off. I know that sounds a little weird. Like, why would he do that? Well, he had to, because he had a hole blown through it. He does feel things like pain and all this, but he gets really like wobbly. His coordination goes down the chute real quick if he's been injured enough, and especially like in his head, so he'll have to regenerate a whole head. But that takes at least 5,000 newtons, which far exceeds a professional fighter's punch, which is on average about 2,400 newtons. So just given that, and he easily just tore the head off. He was doing it pretty delicately though, so because the thing is, he doesn't want to start damaging his spine and things like that. So he's being kind of delicate, and like I said, this is an intelligence point here, because it was enough just to rip the head off, just to pull it right off the spine and have the thing come back up and then get reconnected and all this. It's this little back insect spider thing rearranges it perfectly after it gets up there. So he's also been able to easily rip a car roof off, literally like a tin can, no problem. Capable of bending steel jail cell bars, which take at least 35,000 psi. Okay, that's quite a bit. Casually flipped a large tanker several yards away. That's at least 66,000 pounds. That's just to lift it. That doesn't include the force to throw it. So we're probably looking at least 100,000 pounds of force. This is ridiculous. So, quite the strong guy. As for his durability, well, he's tanked getting a hole blown through his head, tanked being hit and run over by a car, tanked being shot with a high-powered harpoon gun. Just took it like a champ, no problem. Didn't like it hurt him, but he was just like, okay, whatever. Even with the harpoon in him, he actually flipped the truck that the harpoon was in. The harpoon, it was still attached to the rail, or the the cable, which is attached to the harpoon gun, which is mounted to the truck, and it literally flipped the truck. So this takes quite a bit of strength, and this is also while he was flying. So there's all sorts of other forces at play at that one. You have gravity, and you've got wind, and I mean, you got all sorts of other things that are going to play a factor. As for his speed and agility, well, he's caught up to a speeding truck while it was flooring it. Whatever that means, but I mean, that's probably at least about 70 miles an hour. Just easily caught up to it. This is while flying, not even running, just flying. His reaction / travel time avoiding shotgun fire, which that comes out at 903.4091 miles per hour. And he reacted faster than that. That's close to Mach 1, which is, if you look at what Mach 1 is, that's 1,125.33 miles per hour. It's ridiculous. As for his combat capabilities, well, he's a martial weapons expert, so we're not talking like he doesn't use guns or bows as far as we know. But we know that he uses shurikens, which all of his weapons are pretty much just, he makes them. With exception of his axe, from what we can tell. But everything else he makes out of what he kills. So, but he's very, very effective with his martial weapons. You could easily argue at least expert level, if not master level. As for his ingenuity, well, he likes to disable his opponents via traps in his thrown / telekinetic weaponry. And yes, his weaponry, we're not really sure exactly how it operates when he's not around, but it will fly towards flesh is what it appears to be. So we're not sure if it's necessarily, it's attracted to it, kind of like magnetic, but we know it's not always the case. It tends to fly towards his victims, from what I can see. So, so once he's picked somebody, then all of a sudden now they're going to home in on them. But he also likes to play with opponents to instill fear, which is going to inspire or instill the whole flight or fight experience. Well, this is not going to be a good thing for going against the predator, because now it's adrenaline, which is going to go and make the predator even more dangerous. But he's also hunting, so therefore his adrenaline is probably going to pump it up a little bit more. So he'd be a little more keen to go and start paying a little more attention. But besides that point, now we got his powers. He has superhuman strength. He's extremely enhanced senses. It's very similar to Jason in this realm of what he can smell. He's capable of smelling fear, apparently. So apparently, according to the creeper, because he's got 3 nostrils, he can smell fear. Whatever fear smells like. I'm assuming it's probably the duty in somebody's pants, so I'm just saying. But he can also fly. He does have wings underneath his trench coat there. He's so this is a weird one. He's got an absorption ability, but it's through consuming like his opponents or whoever he's picked. It gives him regenerative properties. I've already touched on it a little bit, but basically, let's say he loses a limb, he could eat somebody else's limb and it will regenerate. Very, very much like a lizard, just at an accelerated rate. We're talking, you could argue past Wolverine tier. We're talking Deadpool tier. But it literally, he has to eat somebody, whoever he's picked, to go and get that limb back or appendage or whatever. Once again, we saw that he was able to get a hole was blown right through his head. What did he do? Well, he ate somebody, and their head, after he'd already just devoured it, it came back up in the way it was before it was basically essentially like cut off the head and from the body, and there you go. And it literally came up through his body, kind of like a conveyor system, or like an elevator kind of like system. It just kind of the pulley just boop, 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 came up to the spider thing on the back of the neck, and it just adjusted the head, and it was that person's head, and all of a sudden just shook his head a little bit, and a little screenplay action here, and voila, it's the creeper's head again. So he's even got a little shape-shifting going on here, you could argue. So, but he's also telekinetic, so he can start throwing things with his mind. He does have a regeneration property. He does, technically speaking, he does regenerate on his own, kind of. This is where we don't have an exact tier of regeneration because it's inconsistent. So, but he has regenerated from just crows being all over him. Just absorbed the crows, and all of a sudden, voila, here I am again. But he's also he's got ESP, so he can actually commune with spirits, and he's an animal manipulator, so crows will follow him. If he shrieks loud enough or roars loud enough, they'll die. And yes, he can do things like absorb them too. So once again, we know this from the newest Jeepers Creepers, so spoiler warning. But yeah, he does that. As for his weapons, he comes equipped with 3 daggers, his medieval battle axe, a spear, and 3 shuriken. And only for this battle here, we're going to allow vehicles. And there's a good reason why, because the vehicle itself is a weapon for him. It would be unfair in most other matchups, so we're not going to use it, but it's only for this fight. And that's his old truck, and it's easily tanked Vulcan rounds, which are like armor piercing, just really, really heavy duty ammunition. Like, I'm pretty sure they're explosive too, and just no damage to this vehicle. In fact, it was reflected off, killing the shooters. And his truck commonly reaches at least 100 miles an hour. We also know his speedometer is broken, and he's probably going far faster than that. So, be eating you, which is his license plate. Excuse me. Yeah, he's driving around Florida. So, but what about his opponent? What does the Predator bring to the table? That's a funny one, because the owners of Predator are now officially Disney. This brings up so many jokes, but I'm going to leave them to myself. We don't really know what these predators are, like what their actual names are. We know that they are of the Yacha race. That's about it. They do come with some names, but that depends on the lore you're reading, the movies, things like this. Usually they're given human names by humans. As for their age, they come in all shapes, sizes, ages, and all this. So we don't have an age or real name. As for their height, they're typically, on the low end, they're about 7 feet tall. And with their armor on, they weigh 520 pounds at least. So their occupation, well, they're game hunters. End of the day. Their area of operation, well, they're universal. That's essentially how this works. So they typically come to Earth more often than not, but they do hunt xenomorphs as well. They have been known to hunt the engineers as well, because, well, they're the big bads for a while. But as for their personality, well, they are brutal, highly intelligent, incredibly inventive, prideful, yet honorable. So they do have a very, very high level of pride. That's just because they do live in a very prideful, honorable hunting society, because the hunt is the most important thing to them. But they are incredibly intelligent. They live for hundreds of years, possibly thousands, and that's what they do. They just hunt. After they broke free of their enslavement, then they just started hunting. And hunting, and hunting, and hunting. So, as for some little tidbits, well, this alien species actually lives for the thrill of big game hunting, as I just stated, so there's not much to these guys when it comes to their personality. They're straightforward. They're very, very tunnel visioned, if you will. So, what about the Predator's feats? About to see some interesting stuff here. Oh. All right, so now we're going to get into the strength feats. So it's capable of ripping opponent's head and spine out together. Now, this is something that was noted by Vsauce. They did the math for us. They show it all how it works, and it shows about the comparison between Predator and Mortal Kombat, because this is something the Predators commonly do. It's a trophy for them. So that takes about 1 million newtons, which is approximately 101 plus tons. So there's a lot going into this, but that would also be one-handed. It would have to be. So holding the body with one hand, or pinning it and then ripping it. So he's also capable of ripping open steel doors. So that takes quite a bit. So literally ripping open the steel doors versus bending. This guy's ripping them. As for durability, well, he's resistant to diseases and radiation. He's got a very, very high pain tolerance, and typically has been known to tank gunshot wounds. There is some lore stating they can survive missile barrages and also still fight during that, and they're just tanking the hits. Depends on the lore. As for speed and agility, casually keeps up with speeding vehicles 70 plus miles an hour, and they can move faster than the human eyes can track, which is, it moves faster than 550 miles per hour. Excuse me. As for its combat capabilities, the martial prowess, highly trained martial arts expert. It depends on the lore, because sometimes they say they are martial arts masters. If you look at Alien, or not Alien, but Predator versus Batman, he was able to go toe to toe with Batman. Also superhuman strength. So that's something. Batman's literally beyond master level on martial arts. So, but also weapons master here, and this is all types of weapons: long range, short range, very, very sophisticated weapons, very simple weapons. So, as for their ingenuity, this is where they are going to be the same. They disable opponents via traps and ranged weaponry. Very, very similar. Okay, they do rely on that range. But that's what they're going to try and do. They're going to try and disable their opponent. So, but they also like to stay close for the majority of the time, and they will throw their human voices to catch their opponents off guard. So, this is where things get a little interesting here, because what does a creeper want? Well, once he's picked a target, he's going after him. However, he can pick other targets. And if he hears other people coming around, he might be okay to go and, okay, I'm going to go and sit this one out a little bit and wait and see where this human is here. Let's go and let's wait for them. So he could be tricked. That's basically how this breaks down. As for Predator's powers, excuse me, comes equipped with superhuman strength and enhanced senses. So as a hunter, they've got a really, really keen sense of smell, sight, all this. I mean, they're a big game hunter, and they like to get up close and personal. Excuse me. As for weapons, comes equipped with gauntlet blades, the shoulder plasma caster combo stick, which can be doubled as a spear or a bow staff, smart disc, which is kind of like the remote battering, except like a buzzsaw. Best way to describe it. And then, of course, the net gun. Well, now, a net gun might not seem so deadly, except this net gun, it will continually, it's metal net, like very, very strong metal net, and it will keep digging in and digging in and digging in and keep crushing whoever's underneath it. So this could be lethal. So, as for his vehicle, this is going to be only in the creeper match here. It's a spaceship. It's cloaked, heavily armored, and has shielding and several plasma cannons. Now, this is going to be necessary. Now, this is something we'll break down in a bit, but yes, he does come equipped with a spaceship. So, as for gadgets, well, he comes equipped with his cloaking device, his self-destruct device, which he only uses when he's dying, and a charge emitter, which shuts down electronic devices. So, all right. So, what do you guys think? Who's taking this? Rick, are you still going along with Predator? Or maybe you're thinking maybe the Creeper at this point? What do you guys think? I'm going to get into a little bit of the data analysis here before we really get too far into this. The psychology of this. These characters, very, very similar. However, if you look at the psychology of this, you have a prideful hunter versus one that's totally cool at being incredibly deceitful. In fact, sadistic, likes to torture to some degree. So you have two different types of hunters here. So is a sadistic hunter going to be harder to go encounter than one that's prideful? One that kind of tries to go and play with honor. Maybe. They're both incredibly intelligent creatures here. So, at this point, I mean, just personality-wise, they're pretty formidable. All right. I'm wrapping this one up early tonight. And the reason being I have to is because I have an early morning shift I have to get to. So, we're just going to get right into outcome. Alrighty. If you break this down, if you guys go over the height and weight and things like this, there's a few different things to take from this. Yeah, the creeper's going to have more experience, but you got to divide, 2,000 by 23. We're just going to go with 2,000 just for that number because this is where the creeper's experience comes into play. Okay, so if you were to go and divide 2,000 by 23, you get 86.95. And then on top of that, that's going to be your years. Then you multiply, we're just going to say 87. So 87 years times 365. We're just going to ignore leap year. So that's going to be 31,755 days. Except, unfortunately, they're only around for 23 days per year. So we're going to just say 87 times 23. And you're getting 2,001 days. Now, we're going to divide that by 365. This is going to tell us how many years, which is going to come down to about 5.5 years of experience. That's not a whole lot of experience in hunting. It already came out as a natural-born predator, so it's going to have an edge. But then you got the predator, who's the same way. But then they're trained for years and years and years, and they don't have that kind of downtime unless they're recovering. So when it comes down to experience, creepers actually got less experience. And there's more from that. Top of that, predator for this fight is 7 feet tall and weighs 520 pounds. Predator throws his weight into anything, his punches, any of his close range combat. It's going to mess up the creeper badly. See, I didn't even include the power glove, technically speaking, because, it does have a power glove as well, which is the predator, but that's not a common thing. You don't really see it used that a whole lot. So, I'm not using that one because you see that like one or two times ever. It's not really relevant. So, now we have to go and look at the personality. The problem here with the creeper is he loves being feared by his opponents. Predators don't really, they can feel things like that, but he knows he's a big game hunter. They've got more experience. The fear's not going to be there. Not going to be there, at least for a while. Excuse me. So, when it comes down to it, the creeper's not going to be able to go and instill the fear. And he's got 23 days to be able to do this. The predator's not even going to give him a full day. So, end of the day, this doesn't matter. He's going to be trying to do his little cocky stuff. He's going to note after a while, crap, I can't toy with this guy. Once I find him, I can't toy. I have to go right for the kill, right? That's how he's going to have to eventually evolve into. So if he's allotted that kind of time, which the predator won't allot him that time, but if he's somehow able to survive that long, that's where that comes down to. He's got a huge weakness here. It's a glaring weakness. Okay? And because he's sadistic, he wants to go and kind of torment a bit. The predator doesn't do that. Predator is a big game hunter, believes in honorable kills. Predator is just going to go kill. Just going to go right in for the kill. So when it comes down to it personality-wise, it's a huge glaring weakness to the creeper. In every aspect on the background. Every aspect. Well, let's look at the feats then. If you look at strength, this is where things get interesting. You got 5,000 newtons here, okay. But he was able to just think, okay, I can't use too much strength or else I'm going to go and like tear my spine out. I'm going to go mess other things up, and hopefully hopefully I have some of that in here so I can go and fix that too. But no, he's like, no, I don't want to tempt that. No risks here. So Very smart, but 5,000 newtons of force here. But we know that's not his biggest amount of force he's used. His biggest is actually going to be through the tanker. Through the tanker. She's going to probably take close to about 100,000 pounds of force. And then you are going to apply that over, the size of it. I mean, it breaks down. I mean, it's going to be pretty significant. However, when it comes down to it, you look at how he bent the steel jail cell bars and all this. I mean, you can tell they were reaching, and they were trying to reach a little farther with this one too. So, end of the day, what do we got going on here? They tried to go make him even bigger and badder than he was initially. So, where this is going to end up going, I'll just show you the one strength feat. That's all you really need to see what I'm talking about here. 1 million newtons, which is equal to 101 plus tons. That exceeds well over the 100,000 mark. Because a ton is like 2,000 pounds. You're looking over 200,000 pounds, I believe. I believe it's 2,000 pounds. Let's see. Tons, 2 pounds. Yeah, 1 ton, 1 US ton is 2,000 pounds. So we go and do 101. Oops. And you're looking at 202,000 pounds. So outclassed right there. That's just with ripping the head out. But it's also capable of ripping open steel doors as well. So when it comes to strength, pretty heavily outclassed. And 100,000 pounds is a pretty severe outclassing here. Let's get into durability next. So you look at durability here. Well, tank's getting a hole blown through his head. That already exceeds the gunshot wounds. So that's already given it to him. But it's also been tanked being hit and run over by a car. Tank being shot with a high-powered harpoon gun. This goes to the creeper. And this is also an outclassing. So, because what is the greatest feat? Oh, diseases and radiation. Well, that disease might come in play here, but not radiation. But it's got a resistance, okay. It's a resistance, not an immunity. So, could still get a disease. But tank gunshot wounds, I mean, in a high pain tolerance, that doesn't mean crap here. Not to mention, they don't have regeneration. Yeah, they take the damage, they have to heal normally. So that's going to be an outclassing here. Now, we're going to get into the interesting one here. Speed and agility. Casually keeps up with speeding vehicles, while just more or less like a kind of run. They can run faster, but casually just keeps up with a speeding vehicle. That's pretty crazy. And then can move faster than human eyes can track. That's going to be the Predator here, though. Okay. Then you look at the Creeper. This is where things get interesting. At least 70 miles an hour is able to keep up. It's actually caught up. Not just keeping up. And this is also trying, of course. So this is trying versus not trying. Okay, so when it comes down to the flight speed versus Predator's running speed, Predator's running speed does appear to be greater than the flight speed. And we do know that the Creeper himself, we don't really see him run at that kind of pace. And we do see him run, he's running, he runs fast, but he's not moving at his reaction level. So this is where he comes down to speed and agility breaking down, okay? So when it comes to speed, outright, who wins? That's going to be the Predator. Comes to agility, however, the Predator was able to avoid shotgun fire, semi-close range, which literally exploded a scarecrow that he was pretending to be. And that goes at roughly about 903.4 miles per hour. Okay? Which is pretty close to Mach 1 if you look at it, because Mach 1 is 1,125.33 miles per hour. He moved faster than that. Moved faster than the shotgun fire. So his reaction speed is far greater. So this is where you're going to get, not, I wouldn't say an outclassing, like a severe outclassing, but you're going to definitely get another point going towards the Creeper. So he's got durability and his evasiveness, his agility. He's got this on the Predator, while the Predator outclasses him mentally. Strength-wise, just completely outclasses him. Yeah, he loses in durability, but he's faster than him too. Not by much, but he is faster. But he's not more agile. So next up, we have the martial arts. Well, martial weapons expert / master. This is just with weapons. You've got the weapons master with, and that's all range of weapons with Predator. That's going to go to Predator because he's also got martial arts. We're not going to do a severe outclassing because we don't know what martial arts he's mastered, or which martial arts per se they've mastered. Plus, on top of that, we we know he completely outclassed him when it comes to martial weaponry. So, as for ingenuity, playing with your victim or your opponent in just to instill fear, that's a weakness, especially when your opponent doesn't give a crap and is a hunter himself. This is going to be a glaring weakness. They do a lot of the same thing there on ingenuity, but this is going to be a glaring weakness for the Creeper here. It's not something like we're giving 2 pluses for, but definitely he loses on that one. All right. Well, let's look at what has he got for his powers. Well, he's got a lot of the same things here. When it comes to powers, he's got more versatility. The telekinesis could come in handy. Talking to spirits, not going to do anything. Consumable absorption is going to help, and it's just a little semi kind of slow regeneration. That'll help his flight. He's going to be able to get to areas where the Predator's not going to be able to get to as easily. So, but he's also got an extremely enhanced sense where he's actually capable of smelling fear, but he can smell things. Excuse me. Like, he can smell better, hear better, and all this. This also depends on if he's consumed anybody at this point or not, too. This 23 years of hibernation usually has to restart. So, we're going to be breaking this down by a few different scenarios here. I'm listing at least 3 scenarios we're going to go and talk about. So, so when it comes to powers, I mean, he's got more versatility. But is he really, is his superhuman strength greater? No. Is his enhanced sense going to give him a greater capability? Well, the Predator's enhanced sense, he sees infrared. So, that's it. So if he can see heat, we don't really know if the Creeper's warm or cold. It's debatably